Good afternoon, students. My name is Yuna Kario. I'm your tutor for the subject Classroom Teaching and Management, which is also known as CTM. This is actually for the students that are doing ACSE, the ACPE students, the DPPE students, the DJPE students, the BESP students, the DE, DES, and DSE students. So, welcome to your exam-based contact recording for the year 2020. As I mentioned, my name is Yuna Kario and I'm your tutor for the subject CTM. My contact details are given as on below. Is 08128511424. All right, so let's get on to the business of CTM. All right, welcome to the Classroom Teaching and Management module for 2020. This module is actually, it prepares both our primary school teachers and our secondary school teachers, as well as our pre-primary school teachers, in preparing for teaching and management skills. This module focuses on different educational paradigms, the theories, the practices, the guidelines, principles of teaching and learning from a broader perspective, which you will need to understand in preparation for your assessments. And when we talk of assessments, of course, we are referring to both your exams and your assignments. But this specific recording is based on your exams for 2020. Let me just add that this preparation for 2020 includes all the 3 exams. That is your May exams, your August exams, as well as your November exams, which is also known as your supplementary exams. The recording that I will do today, it includes all 3 exams, as I've mentioned. So if you are preparing to write your exams in August or in November or May, there won't be any other recording done for August or for November. We are actually recording everything today at once, as it is the case in all the subjects that you are doing with IOL. This module is aligned to the International and the Namibian Professional Standards for Teachers 2006. This presentation is not only a source of learning, but it's also for preparing for all your assessments, as I've mentioned. This is not a scope for your examination or assessment. It is just a guide to actually help you as you study for your exams. So you are encouraged to study all your units in full. All the details are in your textbook, your study guides, and your Kindle. You are also encouraged to use any other relevant source of knowledge that might be relevant to the topics that you have in your study guides. The presentation only highlights some of the points that might come in your exams, but there's no guarantee in which assessment they would appear during the year. Meaning that it does not necessarily mean that when I start with the first points that I will highlight on, they are necessarily the points that you will encounter or that you might be assessed in the April-May exams. It's just a guide to help you as you prepare for your exams. And as I mentioned earlier, this is not your scope, but it's just your guide to assist you. You are provided with relevant sources of knowledge for you to succeed in preparation for all your assessments, meaning these tools include your tutor, myself. It includes your textbook, your study guide, and you are also encouraged to make use of your Kindle and any other relevant sources of knowledge. This could be the internet, this could be any website that has good information with regards to your subject, or any books in the library that might be relevant to the subject classroom teaching and management. Okay. This module is aligned for you to acquire the knowledge, skills, and attitude during your studies of classroom teaching and management. In this module, you will find that you have different theories, you have different practices, you have got learners, novice teachers, parents, and source of information. It is important for you to study and understand the critique, management guidelines, applications, inclusion, the challenges, the limitations, and the advantages of all these information mentioned above. So you are encouraged to read thoroughly through your relevant units in your study guide, your Kindle, and your textbook for you to get all the detailed information you might need for your examination and for your assignments. Studying the concepts and features that underpin the educational paradigms assist you to acquire the knowledge and in-depth understanding of learner-centered education. What is it that we actually mean when we talk about learner-centered education? What is meant by competence-based education, teacher-centered education, the adult learning or pedagogy as we also know it? For example, let me just stress that you might be actually required to distinguish between the concept of learner-centered education and teacher-centered education. Maybe you might be required to actually give 5 different points that contradict the teacher-centered education from the learner-centered education. Now, through your study guides and your textbooks, you'll find that there is a lot of theory that is given on the difference between a teacher-centered approach and the learner-centered education. And of course, adult learning is also explained in your study guide. So this is just an example of the kind of questions that you might actually encounter in the exams for 2020. Researchers has conducted research in education to understand how learners learn best and how teachers could teach best or to the best of their abilities. These theories interchangeably has been guiding teaching and learning for years. We have got different theories. We have got the co-op cycle of experimental learning. We've got the behaviorism theory. We've got the cognitivism theory, the constructivism theory. It is important to study and understand all these theories and to understand their critiques, how they are criticized, and also to understand how the advantages that they actually put across and how they can be applied in your own classroom. For example, if you talk about the cognitivism approach or a theory, how can it be applied? How can you apply it in your own classroom as a teacher? And in what is the best way you could use it for you to actually yield the best teaching results in your classroom? And how can learners learn best using this theory of cognitivism? Just an example. So you are required that your answer should actually be able to give what the theory is all about, briefly explain what the theory is all about. For example, if I tell you if you are, for example, are required to talk about the behaviorism theory, you are required to correctly define the theory of behaviorism, give a critique of behaviorism. The people that do not support the theory of behaviorism, what are their points, what are they saying? And then, of course, how can the behaviorism approach be applied in your own classroom? How can it be applied? And what kind of assessment can you use if you are using behaviorism? All this information, you'll find it in your study guides. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you are actually, as a student, you are required to look for more information using all the available resources that you might be of use to you. That is the internet, that is the library, and other textbooks. There is a lot of literature written on these on all these theories of learning and teaching. The Namibian National Professional Standards for Teachers describe the competent teacher in terms of the following headings. A professional teacher has got professional knowledge, has got professional values, has got professional practice or skills, has got professional relationships, that is relationship between other teachers and the learners that are placed in front of us. So as a highly qualified and competent teacher, you know that you are required to have the following. More explanation and how to apply the competencies are well outlined in your sources of knowledge. If you go in your study guide, you find that all these 4 competencies are well explained. So you may be required to actually explain all of them, or you may be required to explain 1 or 2 of them. All right, thank you. I'm just reminded to take a bit of water from my senior that side. Okay, we will look now at the lesson preparation and presentation. Okay. Lesson preparation and presentation are the teacher's daily activity. we all know as teachers, it's not easy to have a lesson that will go smoothly without a thorough lesson preparation. The presentation of a lesson will not go as planned, or it may not go well if the lesson has not been well prepared. Hence, it's a requirement that on a daily basis, teachers do prepare their lesson thoroughly, and they enable all the required components of the lesson to be well prepared, or else the lesson presentation itself will not go accordingly. Each component of lesson preparation and presentation should be well set and well prepared in advance before a lesson takes place. The different phases of each of the three components of lesson planning and preparation should be well understood by the students. As students of the subject CTM, you are required to actually understand all the phases of the lesson planning and preparation, all the three components of lesson planning and presentation, and you should be able to give them as an example in your writing. You might be required to do that in the exams, or you might be required to actually elaborate on what they are and why they are important. All right. The basic guidelines for your delivery in relation to public speaking and or presentation skills are also important. As you know, as a teacher, you are a public speaker, as you are presenting a lesson or a skill to the learners that are in your classroom that are listening to you. Hence, it's very important that the basic guidelines that are there are stipulated on public speaking as are understood by you as a student of CTM. You do understand what is required of you as a presentation person who delivers a presentation, or as a person who does public speaking. Studying both lesson preparation and the delivery of public speaking and presentation would enrich your knowledge too. Hence, not only in the classroom as a teacher, but you might find that skills in public speaking can actually assist you in all other areas of your life when you may be required to do public speaking. There are different group methods that can be used for effective teaching and learning to take place. For example, we've got group methods such as team games, jigsaw, debates, and etc. You can name more. So you are actually required to know the limitations. Limitation in this case, we can say these are the disadvantages, and then we should know also the benefits or the advantages in the application of all these different types of group methods. For example, if you talk about team games, if the learners have to use a team game or some form of games that they play against each other as teams in a class, for example, maybe you have 3 teams or 4 teams, and the learners are playing games, but in the same way they are also learning something. As a student of CTM, please, you should be able to actually apply what could be the limitations or the disadvantage of having learners learning through the group method of team games in your classroom, and what could actually be the advantage. You should be able to explain all this. And as mentioned in your guide, in your slides there, that all these limitations or disadvantages and all these benefits or advantages, they are all clearly outlined in your study guide. Let's move on to gifted learners that need to be identified and also catered for. In our own classroom, we as teachers, we tend to diagnose our learners when they are gifted. We don't seem to give them the necessary care or attention that they require, because it's often times we neglect them. Knowing that they've understood the concepts, we actually put them in a situation whereby we put all our concentration on the slow learners, on the below average learners. Hence, it is actually required of us through our theories that we have in CTM that gifted learners should initially in your classroom, which they should first of all they should be identified. Once they have been identified, you as a teacher, you are required to offer enrichment to their knowledge, to their skills, to their gift. and specific groupings of people, you can actually use them in such a way that they can benefit the entire classroom. If you have a learner who's gifted in mathematics, for example, use that gifted learner in that specific subject to actually enrich by using the teacher to actually tutor the other learners in the classroom when it's if the learner is comfortable with that. Please do not force a child who's not comfortable in tutoring or teaching the learners to do that, because then it's not helping that gifted child. Let the child participate in what they are capable and they are comfortable in doing. And we also we encourage you as teachers that once you have identified these gifted learners, you could actually place them in specific groups that they can actually benefit from. If they benefit being with learners that are as gifted as them, or they actually benefit by being with learners that are below average, where they are able to share their knowledge or their skills, if it benefits them, please, you can put them in such kind of groups. And of course, you are encouraged that you motivate them to learn more. The learning should not end because they are gifted, but they are also encouraged to learn more. Encourage them to explore more and to actually satisfy their quest for knowledge. And if it means that the learner wants to be more challenged, you are actually encouraged as a teacher to give more challenging lessons or activities for that specific gifted learner in your classroom. These are all well articulated in your CTM course book, as it's stated in your slides there. Every teacher chooses an instructional strategy or method that they can use to teach, which might have advantages and disadvantages, and which might require some preparation. As we said earlier, that lesson preparation or presentation is very important, or else your lesson does not go accordingly. So it's important that you identify or you choose your own method of teaching, and then of course you understand that each and every teaching method that you are going to use and the instructional strategy that you use, it might have its advantage and disadvantage. Hence you are encouraged to understand all the advantages and disadvantages of any instructional strategy or method that you choose to use. The module CTM advices on how you would choose the appropriate instruction method for a particular lesson. Of course, you cannot use the same type of teaching methodology or instructional strategy for all the lessons. Each and every lesson might use a different method of teaching based on what it is that you want to achieve. What are the objectives of the lesson? What is that you want the learners to know at the end of the lesson? Study about how to choose an instructional theory, and you should be able to articulate at your best when you are asked to do so. And if you are asked, for example, you might be asked that for this specific lesson, what method or strategy would you use? And if you choose that method, please, you should be able to articulate to the best of your ability why you are choosing that specific method or that specific instructional strategy. Understanding the causes of discipline, handling of discipline, and the conflict resolution is key to successfully teaching and learning in schools and classrooms. When we are dealing with our learners, our main aim is not only to teach the subject content. We are also regarded as role models for our own learners, and we should also be able to handle issues of discipline in a professional way, in such a way that our own learners in our classroom regard us as role models, that we should inspire them to behave to the best of their abilities. Hence, it's important that the way you handle all discipline issues in your classroom should be done in a fair and in a professional way. Sometimes classroom discipline problems are caused by the lack of understanding of the importance of classroom management. You find that there are teachers that do not understand why it is important to have classroom management in your lesson. Before your lesson starts, you should understand that as a teacher, you are required to try to manage your classroom in such a way that you do not cause harm, or your classroom does not cause any harm to any child in your class. Because when the class is not well managed and the disciplinary issues happen during your class or during your presentation or during the time that the learners are sitting in your classroom and disciplinary issues happen, you might find that these disciplinary problems can cause some form of disadvantage to some of the learners, if not all the learners. Hence, it's important that we do understand why we need to actually manage our classroom in a professional way that benefits all learners in our classroom, including the teachers. Teaching and learning strategies are often the center of education. Hence, like we mentioned earlier, the content that you are teaching to your learners is very important. The strategy that you are going to use to teach your learners and the way in which the learners understand and the way in which the learners are learning the concept that you are teaching is very important. Hence, that's where we are saying it's the center of education. As a teacher, you need to vary your teaching methods in accordance to different learning styles of the learners. Learners that you have in your classroom are not of the same level. As we mentioned earlier, we have got gifted learners, we have got our average learners. Or gifted learners, these are normally your learners that are usually scoring 90 or 80% in a given exam or assessment. And your average learner, these are usually your 60% kind of learners, the guys that always score a 60 or 65%, your average learners. And then you've got your below average students. These are learners that often score a mark of 40% or below. These are your below average learners. So you do need to understand that the way in which you teach your learners should actually be according to their different learning styles. There are learners who learn better in different ways. So hence you have to understand that you have to cater for everyone. You have to cater for all these different types of learners that you have and their different learning styles. Hence your teaching methods should be according to the different learning styles of learners that you have in your classroom. Again, you are encouraged to consult the sources of knowledge of this module. Your module is well equipped with all the different types of styles of learning by your learners. Please do make use of your study guides and your textbook. As mentioned earlier, we talked about the different learning styles of learners that may be in your classroom. We have three main different learning styles. We've got the visual learning style or activities. We've got the auditory learning styles or activities. We've got the kinesthetic learning styles, all the different activities that learners use. When we talk of visual learners, these are actually learners who learn best by visualizing. No, visualizing is seeing. These are learners that learn best when they've seen a picture, when they've seen a photograph, when they've seen a diagram of something. These are they actually learn better when they've seen, and they're actually able to remember what they've learned through pictures or through motions. These are your visual learners. And then you've got your auditory learners or learning activities. This is the kind of learning activity whereby learners learn better by listening, by hearing. You could actually apply this by reading out loud to the learners when you are explaining something while they listen. You find that some of your learners in your classroom, they might be this type of learners that learn better when they listen. Or you could actually use a tape recorder and let them listen to that tape recorder. These are the kind of learners that learn better. And then you've got the kinesthetic learning ways. Here it involves learning by doing, using your hands. You find that some learners, they will actually be able to remember something if they've done that something with their own hands. So you have to identify these learners and please encourage them to learn more using the best learning method that they can learn with. The ways and activities that these learning styles entail are well outlined in your sources. As I've just given you examples, of course, you are free to equip yourself with more knowledge about these different types of learning activities. Enhancing creativity among learners is crucial during your teaching profession. You are encouraged to allow your learners to be creative. Don't spoon feed them. Everything that has to be done in your classroom should not just depend on what you are feeding them. You as a teacher, you are not the master of knowledge. You are actually a facilitator of knowledge. Let the learners be creative. Let them find information on their own. Let them be curious to find information, and let them actually be able to explore. And actually, when they have explored and they found this information on their own, they are able to retain the information more. They will remember the information more on their own, and they will even have more motivation to learn on their own, which is actually what we want to achieve at the end of the day as teachers. Alright, then we know that learners are also taking responsibility of their own learning experience, and the teacher, you are actually guiding them in exploring and finding this information on their own. Let's move on now to the learning partnership in the classroom. As we said, when you are enhancing creativity, you as a teacher, as you are facilitating learning in your classroom, you actually make it possible for the whole teaching and learning process to be a partnership. Like I said, you are not the source of information. You are actually allowing the learners to also be part of the exploration of information. You are actually allowing them also to be creative in their own learning, and then you are encouraging them to even learn more. At the end of the day, it becomes a learning partnership. So you are required to understand what we mean by learning partnership. As a teacher, you should also be able to analyze the relationship of learning theories with teaching principles. There are 4 categories of emotions and multiple emotional skills which relate to each other. We've got the interpersonal development and healthy relationships. We've got the personal leadership. We've got self-management, that is the career and your life. We've got the interpersonal development. For more understanding on these different categories of emotions, please get more detail in your study guides or in your textbooks. It's clearly defined there, but just know that all these 4 categories, you need to understand them for your exams. Novice teachers would need to be respected and successful in their career. Guidelines for novice teachers to achieve these are well presented in your module. Please understand what we mean by the concept of novice teachers and the guidelines for novice teachers. They are all in your study guides. Please understand them. Explore the 7 habits of highly effective people in life, written by Stephen Covey. We've all, I'm sure, heard of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Please do actually explore these 7 habits and try as much as possible to understand them and also to apply them. A teacher philosophy is a statement that teachers should develop to serve as a vision and reflection of their own work and how they are doing in their own teaching profession and how they can improve in how they deliver their lessons to their learners. So you are encouraged as a teacher to understand how you can develop your own philosophy of teaching. How to develop the teaching philosophy and why you should develop it, also should understand that. Of course, you get more information on this through your study guide. Okay, so we are concluding now on guidelines of how to answer your assignments in your question papers. I'll go through these points, and I'll quickly explain the points as I read through them. Read all questions to familiarize yourself with the content of the whole question paper at least twice. It helps you to create a mind map and to connect yourself to what you have learned. What this basically means is that before you start answering the question, please, you are encouraged to read through the question and try as much as possible to understand what the question is expecting you to answer. It's often that some students don't actually read through the question, and at the end of the day, you find that the student has not actually understood what the question is requiring the person to do, and they misunderstand the question. At the end of the day, they lose marks because they've not understood the question. The question was not understood well, or it was misunderstood. So please, you are encouraged to read through the question clearly and link the question to what you have learned or what you have prepared. Start to write your answers. In most cases, to some learners, it helps to answer questions that you are confident about. This goes back to our time when you're in school, when our teachers used to ask. I remember this used to happen with my school when we were doing our grade 10 exams. We were encouraged that when you are given a question paper, it does not necessarily mean that you have to answer the first question first. You are encouraged to answer the question that you have confidence in answering first. The question that you actually see that this question I understand it, this question I know it, I can answer it. Please answer that question first. That's what this point actually tells you. Answer the question you are most confident with first, because after you have done that, after you have answered that question and you know for sure that this question I know it and I've answered it, it gives you confidence. It helps you to create confidence that even when you are going to tackle that question that you think this question I might not know it very well, you have already created this confidence in you. And the way that this confidence, what it does for you now as a student, is that it can help you, it can ease you to remember. It can actually help you to tackle that question, a question that maybe you might have left blank, but now you are having the courage to actually tackle the question because you have this confidence to answer it. At the end of the day, you are encouraged to actually answer. It's also it's also in a way it helps you not to forget, because if you start answering a question that you don't know very well, you might panic and you tend to forget the content. Hence, you are encouraged that please do answer the question that you understand first, and then it will help you to remember, and then you can apply that throughout the question paper. That's why the first point we are encouraging you that you go through the whole question, so at least you can say, okay, I saw question 5 was easier than question 1, I'll go to question 5 first. But if you have not gone through the whole question paper, you will not know what is in question 5. You might start with question 1, and at the end of the day, it might be a problem for you. Number your questions as in the question paper if you are required to do so. It helps the marker to navigate through your answers. Please do not change if the tutor has numbered question 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Don't come and answer question 1A, B, C, D. It just causes confusion. You are encouraged to number the questions as they are numbered in the question paper if you have to number them in your answer book. Remember that tutor have a lot of students to mark, so make it easy by being neat. Write neatly, and please try to write in a handwriting that is clearly readable for the tutor, and avoid a lot of scratching and removing some of the words that at the end of the day it's not very clear what is not part of the answer anymore and what is should be avoided. If you know that the whole paragraph is not going to be, you are encouraged to please take a ruler and put a neat line over the word that you are cancelling out, so that the tutor is able to identify that this is not part of the answer anymore, this is not part of the answer. Be factual when rephrasing or using your own words. If you are using your own words, you're not using the words in the study guides, please use words that are actually make sense, or that are actually which are using facts. Let's acknowledge resources and avoid copying word by word. This is especially when you are doing assignments. Please try to acknowledge the source of the information you are using and avoid copying and pasting. You are not you are not expected to do that as students. You're supposed to acknowledge the owner of the information you are using. Avoid and restrain from copying down without rephrasing and referencing. That's what I've also mentioned there. The marks allocated should serve as a guideline on the volume of content you should write for each question. For example, you might find that there's an essay question that has got 15 marks, and then you've got another essay question that has got 8 marks. Obviously, the content that you are going to put for a 8-mark question and the 15-mark question, the content won't be the same. The marks allocated per question should actually guide you of how much content you should write in each question. So the marks should actually be a guideline. Please, when you read the question, look at the marks allocated, so that you know, even if it's an assignment, you know how much content to put there. Even if it's an examination, look at the marks allocated. Of course, for a question that has 4 marks, for example, we don't expect you to write a whole page, A4 page for 4 marks. It just doesn't save the purpose that I'm going to write for a whole page just to get 4 marks. Even if your handwriting is huge like mine, you might try to at least maybe half a paragraph or 5 or 6 lines if you have to write a lot of information. Avoid writing or copying down as much as you can to catch the marker. These markers reserve the right to not award any marks. This is what we are saying. For a question of 4 marks, you are writing the whole page, a page and a half for 4 marks. So what it means there is that the marker has the right to not read even the next page for that. If your answer is only going to be found in the last paragraph, as a marker, I think I deserve that right to stop reading the entire content after the second paragraph for 4 marks. Be confident and relaxed to avoid mixing questions, numbers, and cancelling the correct answer in the process. This is especially when you are panicking. Maybe this is now for your multiple choice questions or true or false question. You find that a number of times students actually start cancelling out the correct answers when they are panicking. So avoid panicking, relax, and try to take your time in answering the questions. I'm sure the amount of marks we are allocated for each and every question is enough for us to answer thoroughly. The aim of every assessment is to help enrich yourself with all the skills, the values, the knowledge, and the relationship that are there between the concepts of the subject CTM. So you are please advised that to assess you is actually to help you to understand all the concept that is within this module. It advised not to leave any multiple choice questions unanswered. In fact, I would advise not to leave any question unanswered at all. Please try your best. Try to apply what you have learned in your studies. Try to apply what you have learned in your own experience, for those of you with a bit of experience in answering the questions, and try to use your own examples from your own teaching and learning experiences. It might help you to score marks.